So today we're going to climb a bunch of boulders, and the idea is if I send the boulder, I'm going to come down off the wall and talk about some of the things I was thinking about, why I was using certain techniques that I used, and why they work. So with that being said, let's start with the first boulder. I'll start with this purple one here. This is a 9, so I'll give it my first go. So that was a good one to start with. I think there was actually a lot to unbox, even with such a kind of simple looking boulder. So to start, literally to start the boulder, I did something a little bit subtle that I often see newer climbers making mistakes with. So I actually started this first move up here, right? I kind of pull on and I'm immediately in a lock off. So granted, with this specific boulder, I'm able to do this because of my height, but this can still be scaled to any size of climber with like different starting positions. Like even on a starting position like this, which is maybe a little bit lower, it's the same idea. If we have our next hold, like the move is clearly a lock off, start high, so you're immediately in the lock off. The mistake I see a lot of people making is, even though I'm tall enough to do what I was just talking about, some climbers will start all the way down here and then do like this big pull move. Whereas you can simply start in a lock off already and then just reach. So by starting higher, I'm eliminating a big kind of tiring pull on 2 little crimps, right? So there's a couple other things with this boulder that I was thinking about, particularly with the last move. So I was in that situation where I was on that last sloper and I needed to get my feet up to move for the finish hold. And the hold is pretty bad, right? It's a slopey sloper. So often with this kind of hold, what you can do, I'll climb up and show it again, but is you can stack one hand on top of the other. So in this case, for the last move, I'll climb up. In this case, the right hand is very important to go to the finish hold. So I'm gonna stack my left on top. I'm gonna lock it in there. Basically, I'm putting so much pressure through my right hand, like I can just hang here. It's really locked in. And then that allows me to move my foot up here to go for the finish hold. And then another thing I was thinking about for the last move, I kind of have my right hand is a little bit on the right side of this hold. So when I'm moving for the finish hold, it's actually very important where I put my heel hook. I make sure to put my heel hook a little bit to the left on the sloper so that I get some compression. If I'm grabbing the right side here, I want to be compressing with my left heel pulling this way. Whereas if I was to put my left heel kind of just here and be pressing down, there's no compression there, right? If I'm going down with the heel and right with the hand, that's not compression. I want left with the heel and right with the hand. That's always kind of like a golden rule to look for when you're on the wall, is compression, right? You have 2 side pulls, you want to compress. You can do the same thing with a hand and a foot. You have a right hand side pull, you want to compress with the opposing leg, right? So that helped lock me in, so I could just statically reach for the finish hold with that compression. So yeah, that was some cool little subtle techniques to unbox from that boulder, I thought. So yeah, let's keep looking around and see what else we can find. This next one is this white boulder on the steep. Let's give it a go. All right, yeah, so a couple more cool techniques I think to take away from this one. First off, probably the most important one that really stuck out to me was the sequence where I went up with the right hand, had to come into this hold, and my right heel was on this hold. So I think there was a lot of body tension involved in that sequence. And the hard part was getting this right foot to stay on and not slip. Because you can see this hold is okay. It's not like a super sloper, but it's not a juggy heel by any means. So basically I used a technique to kind of really ensure that my right foot was not going to slip off. And what I did, I'm sure most people will be familiar with what a heel toe cam is. So basically I did a heel toe cam with only one hold, and I did a heel toe cam on the wall. So basically, instead of just heel hooking with my right heel here and relying on the friction, I put my heel here and I press the inside of my toe against the wall. And you see how it's kind of really locked in here, right? We got force going this way and force going this way. And basically the pressure that I'm putting towards the wall with this toe is forcing more pressure down with my heel down onto the hold, therefore increasing the friction and making sure that it doesn't slip. Whereas without that pressure, it's just the pressure of the toe, it's just the heel, and it's more likely to slip. Whereas this, we're really locking it in. Typically with a heel toe cam, you'll see another hold here, right, to achieve this. But because this isn't necessarily meant to be a heel toe cam, we're kind of inventing it ourselves, and you can actually get the same effect with the wall. So that was really, really helpful to let my foot not slip. And then another technique I used was once I got up to the zone, we had to do a move out to the left. And the zone hold is a Gaston, and it's not the best hold. So if I were to just kind of move too fast for this left hand, I might end up kind of barn dooring off because the right hand isn't like juggy enough to keep me on the wall. I could have done something like a toe catch where I go up fast with the left and catch a toe, but I didn't want to go for such a low percentage method. So what I did is I recycled a hold from earlier in the sequence. So we went to this hold here. We went to this hold, this left hand, and then we end up leaving it, right? So we've used that hold, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're done with it in the entire climb, right? I can go up to a hold further on in the climb and actually come back and use a hold that I used previously. And this allows me to kind of release my right foot and find a better position to move up more statically for the left hand. And I could even kind of oppose with my thumb to really help release the right foot. So yeah, this technique is called recycling holds. Just because you've used a hold in a climb and you moved on from it doesn't mean that you should kind of disregard that hold in terms of your hands for the rest of the boulder. A lot of times you can actually reach back down and use the hold that you've already used in the boulder. And in this case, it helped me release the right foot to move statically to the next hold. All right, that's it for that one, I think. Find another one. Okay, so next up we have a slab boulder. Looks pretty tricky. I'm gonna ditch the mic for this one because with the chest nice and close to the wall, we don't want to hear it scratching. So a lot to unpack with this one as well, as there always is with slab in general, just because it's so technical. So we'll work from the bottom up. So to start the boulder, I'm not sure what the intention with this one was, like if we want to start here and then kind of do a foot swap. But I thought, let me just start with my left foot here to start with, and then that way I can just move my right foot immediately up here and go into the sequence instead of doing a foot match. So what that meant is I had a really tenuous kind of move with the right hand to established to start, right? To touch my other hand. And this is very common with slab boulders, is you are in a start position, and then to achieve your point of contact, like your last point of contact, you have to move a limb in order to touch something. And what the important thing to do with that is to make sure that limb you're moving to get the last point of contact, you're just moving in complete isolation. So pay attention to my right arm when I'm doing this. I'm not rotating my whole body and moving everything to achieve this, because what happens when you do that is you push yourself away from the wall and then you bobble off. So if I'm here and I really like open up like this, you see how I can't stay close to the wall, right? So it's really important that I'm here and I move that right arm in complete isolation. Nothing else is moving. As best as I can. Like, of course, your shoulder will kind of have to rotate a little bit, but try to minimize it as much as you can. And then the next thing to talk about is a stand-up move to these two kind of thumbs. So the thing to notice me emphasizing here is the way that I bend my legs a lot before I go for the holds. So this is the way you want to try to avoid doing this move, is you see how my left leg is completely straight? Basically, I don't get enough time to kind of pull my body inwards to the wall as I'm moving up and give like a nice cushioned bit of momentum up to these two holds. If my left leg is straight, I just get a little burst. But if I bend, making sure that both of my legs are bent, like this, it gives me more time to kind of come a little bit away from the wall and stand up nice and slower and way more controlled, and make sure that I'm absorbing that momentum really nicely into that finished position, rather than like jerking it from a straight leg. It's basically anytime you're on a slab and you're doing a stand-up move, bend your legs. It's like you wouldn't want to do a jump from the ground with straight legs, right? That doesn't make sense. Same kind of thing with this. And then, yeah, there's one more thing to talk about on this boulder actually, and it's the move over to this kind of little thumb catch. So very similar, actually, very similar concept with the stand-up move. When we have a lateral move on the slab, we want to use the same idea. Basically, we kind of want to go in the opposite direction to start, and then go in the direction we want to go. So in this case, the opposite direction was to go a little bit down by bending the legs to go up. When we want to move left, we actually kind of want to move a little bit to the right first, and then go left. And it's the same idea. We give ourselves more of a wind-up and more time to really find that balance as we're moving laterally. So I'll just jog up to that move again. And I am just like kind of exactly in the center and move over here. I start falling away from the wall immediately, and I don't get to my end position in time before I've fallen away from the wall too much. But if you contrast that with me moving to the right first and really winding up, it really gives me that time to generate more for the move, get more momentum on my side, and also process what I'm doing. My body gets more spatial awareness as I'm moving through, and then absorbing that end position a lot better. So yeah, these are some great takeaways from this slab boulder. Okay, so next up, we have this blue boulder with some slopers. And I've done this one before, and actually this move up left I found quite difficult, because this right hand is quite slopey. And the one we're moving to is a bit better, but it's also, not a jug. So that's something to pay attention to for this boulder. So actually, funnily enough, to start off with, on this one, we kind of had the exact same thing we were talking about with the first boulder, where we're in a similar situation, where I could start, down here, right? But instead I just say, I can be in the same spot, I can start and kind of immediately go into a locked off position, because that's what I'm gonna be doing next. And actually a really cool sort of nuanced thing I was doing for this first kind of sequence as well. Because we have two slopers that are facing the same direction, it's very difficult to stay on this position, right? Because it kind of feels like we're gonna just pull ourselves this way. Whereas if these were jugs, we could kind of pull on the hold straight on, so there's no worry about tipping. But because they're slopers, they're very difficult to actually pull inwards with, right? So how do we actually stay on the wall on these slopers instead of just tipping off to the right? And so the way that I was doing that is I was using my left foot. And what I was doing is I was sliding my foot while I was pressing it against the wall, and then I was also sliding it against it as I was moving up. So first let me explain why I was doing that and what's the point, what is it doing? So actually this is kind of achieving what we call a reverse bicycle. So if my right toe is on this hold and I'm pressing against the wall here, this is a reverse bicycle. So come over this way. I'll just kind of give a more obvious demonstration of what a reverse bicycle is. So if I'm here, right, and I have my right foot is on this hold and my left toe is toe hooking here, I'm pressing down with my right and I'm pulling with this left, right? And I'm getting some opposition with these two. And it's called a reverse bicycle because bicycle is when I have a foot on top here and a toe here and they're kind of compressing this, whereas here it's opposition, right? So it's kind of the opposite, but creating the same effect, a very stable position. So here, I'm doing basically very similar to the heel toe cam concept against the wall that we were talking about earlier. I'm doing a reverse bicycle using the wall. It's actually quite interesting what you can do with the wall a lot of times and really use the wall as like your secret weapon with a lot of sequences. So yeah, because this foothold is protruding, I can press inwards towards the wall and use my left toe to oppose that. And that just keeps my center of gravity and my lower body locked in while I'm maneuvering these bad holds. So you can pay attention to it. So when I establish, I immediately put my left foot against the wall to lock me in, and then I even slide it up as I move for the next hold. So I'm here, left toe. You see how that allows me to move very statically? Whereas if I don't do it, my left foot is hanging. I can't even do the move. Like I genuinely can't do the move like that. I need that opposition to lock me in with these slopers. So that's really cool. And then now let's talk about the crux of the boulder. Jumping off this really, really bad right hand to a little bit more of a positive hold. So using the similar concept we were just talking about where with the slopers, it's very difficult to pull yourself into the wall because there's no bite on the holds you're grabbing, right? So when I'm doing a jump move and it's difficult to pull myself into the wall, it makes it a hard move, right? So I need to find other ways to help get myself into the wall and closer to the wall because I can't just rely on my grip. So something that I'm doing on this move is as I hit this hold, I consciously tip my head forward a bit. So what this does is by tipping your head forward, it's also rolling your shoulders forward a bit, and it's just getting more of your upper body kind of tipping in closer to the wall and creating a bit of a lever, right? And so basically, imagine that I do the jump and my whole body's way out here and my hands are in front of me. There's no way I'm pulling myself back into the wall because these holds are bad. But if I'm in the wall, I don't really need to pull myself into the wall because my upper body's already there. And I'm just, more of my weight is hanging straight down underneath the slopers instead of out away. So as I do the move, I tip my head in, roll those shoulders forward, and get more of my weight inwards. Because the more in and underneath the slopers we are, also the better holds they are. So I'll do the move again really quick and you can pay attention to how I tip my head. Yeah, really, really helpful. You really just, as soon as the head goes in, you kind of feel some weight taken off your hands because you're no longer like gripping them as hard. So really pay attention to that when you're doing jump moves on slopers. Make sure you're not coming away from the wall, tip that head, get more weight in and underneath. All right, let's keep going. Okay, next up we got this really fun looking white jump and balance slab. This boulder's a little old and it's got lots of rubber on this, so it's gonna be maybe foot slip central, we'll see. Hopefully I get lucky. Should have ditched the mic. Maybe it's not too late. Okay, I'm gonna do the last move with the mic in my hands. Amazing. Always gotta remember to ditch the mic on the slabs. So, this first move is like super cool. And I've watched a lot of people try this boulder actually. So, basically, this is the good spot of the foothold, right? This is kind of where we want to be standing. It's the most flat. And as you can see here, it's just more slopey. So this is the good spot where we want to stand on, but it's really far away, right? Especially with our right foot all the way down here. And so basically what I've seen a lot of people when they try this move, you either want to try and jump all the way for the good spot and you come up short, or you try to jump less far, which is easier to do, right? To try and jump and land here is easier to get there, but obviously it's slopier and difficult to balance on. So what if there's a way where we could get the best of both worlds though? And that's what I did actually. I combined the best of both worlds, right? I did a shorter jump because I initially landed here, but I wasn't gonna be able to balance there, so I did another jump to the good spot of the hold. So I didn't jump all the way, the full distance here. I just did a shorter jump, but still achieved what I wanted to achieve. And it might seem kind of really difficult to do another jump, but in reality it's not, because when you're absorbing your momentum on this big surface like this, your foot feels very secure, and then it's just a very simple hop. And because you already have the momentum of your initial jump carrying you up, it's not like you're doing a pistol squat jump. Your momentum is already taking you up there. So I'll do it again just to show. But yeah, pay attention how I do a second jump to land on the good spot to where I want to go. Yeah, even that time I came up a little bit short. I landed a little bit lower than where I wanted to go, but same idea, right? I landed about here and then got to here. So that's always cool, right? When you're doing a jump and land, consider, can I sort of inch my foot incrementally to where I want to get? And then a little note for the last move. Anytime you're gonna do a stand-up move on a slab where you have to balance, you always want to square up. And so what I mean by that is, you see how both my toes are pointing in the same direction? This is not ideal to do a stand-up move out of, because my hip, this hip is rotating in towards the wall and it's kind of pushing me away. But if I square up, I square my hips, I can get my pelvis closer to the wall and I'm leaning against the wall more, right? Whereas if I do this, I can't, right? I'm rotating outwards. And if I try to stand up while I'm doing that, as I'm rotating outwards, I'm gonna fall away like this. So anytime you're about to do stand-up move, check, hey, am I square? No, I'm not. Probably means I need to do this. Square up, get the pelvis in, nice and close, and then do the stand-up. All right, that's all the climbing for today. Hope you learned some cool techniques. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.